We will now create our navigation. We see that we have the brand name and some simple menu items, and then a drop down all the way to the right side. We also see that if we resize the browser window, the nav bar will collapse and showing only the brand name and the toggle button, which will toggle the content when clicked. Inside this, we can still use our drop down. Alright, let's code this. In our text editor, right after our body tag, we'll start creating the nav tag. We'll give it the classes navbar for the navbar itself, and then navbar expand LG to say when we want this to expand and collapse. This will be for large devices and up, that it will be expanded. And then to pick a color theme, we add the classes navbar light and BG light. Inside, we first want to constrain the width of the content, so we add a div tag with the class container. Now our content will have a max width and some padding. To the very left side, we want to create the navbar brand. We'll make it as an anchor link, like so. Give the href attribute the value index.html, then the class navbar brand. We'll give it the text small business. This should be the name of the business. Now we want to make our toggle button, which is a button element with the class navbar toggler. This is used for the styling of the button. We'll also give it the type button for semantic reasons, and to initialize the JavaScript, we want to use the data toggle attribute with the value collapse, and also the data target attribute with the value being the ID of our collapse content, which we'll create in a moment. So this will be hash navbar collapse. And for accessibility, we'll add some attributes as well. Area controls with the value being the same ID, navbar collapse. This time we don't need our hash. And the area expanded attribute, the value being false, and the area label attribute with the value being toggle navigation. This is so that screen readers can read what the button does. To create the actual icon inside of our button, we use a span tag with the class navbar toggler icon. Now we will see this kind of burger icon appear. Now we'll create the content that can be collapsed, which is all the menu items and the drop down. So we start with creating a div tag with the class collapse and navbar collapse. Give it the ID navbar collapse, which we were using just up here and here as well. So this is part of the collapse component described in another lecture. This is why we use the class collapse. And then we use the navbar collapse as well, since this is part of the navbar component, or used inside the navbar component. Now we'll create an unordered list with the class navbar nav. We want it to be positioned at the very right side of our navbar. So to do this, we add the utility MR Auto, which will give it an auto value on the margin right. This will make it go all the way to the right side. We'll see it in action in a moment. Inside we'll create a list item. We'll give it the class nav item. And inside this we'll add an anchor tag. The first one will have the index.html value, and then the class nav link will give it the text home. Now I'll just copy this and paste it in 4 more times, and I'll then change the values of the href attribute and the text content of the anchor tag to services, about, team, and contact. Finally, we'll make our first item the active one. So we'll add this active class to the nav item, and then for accessibility we'll add a span tag with the class SR only and the text current inside brackets. So this current word will only be visible for screen readers. Okay, now we only need to create our dropdown as the final content of our collapsed content. So just after our UL tag, we create a div tag with the class dropdown. Then we create the button to toggle the dropdown. We'll give it the type button and the classes BGN and BGN secondary to make it have the secondary gray color. We'll make it a small button by using the class BGN SM, and then finally we'll use the drop-down toggle to give it the right icon for a drop-down button. Then we'll give it the ID drop-down language, which we'll use again in a moment. And then to initialize the JavaScript, we use the data toggle attribute with the value drop-down. And for accessibility, we'll use the area has pop-up attribute with the value true, and the area expanded attribute with the value false. And we'll give it the text change language. And we'll close the button tag. Now we'll create the drop-down menu, which is a div tag with the class drop-down menu, and the area labeled by attribute with the value drop-down language. This is what we were referring to up here. Okay, then we'll close this div tag, and inside we'll create some anchor tags. We'll just make up a URL here, company name.com/language. We'll give it the class drop-down item and then the text language. So this could, for example, be French or German or something. We'll duplicate this twice. Now let's save. Now we'll go to our folder and open up our index file in the browser. Here we see that we have our navigation bar with the drop down working. And when we resize the browser window, we can see that the collapsed content also works. This collapse will expand for large devices and up.